Leaving the medicine man's lodge, Shadow Hawk caught his big calico stallion and rode into the hills. He needed time alone, time to think. Shadow Hawk gave the horse its head, and Ohitika, the brave one, ran effortlessly, its long legs eating up the miles as it climbed higher and higher, gliding over the low, grassy hills like an eagle skimming the sky. Shadow Hawk put the medicine man's question from his mind. He knew the answer to that. What Heart of the Wolf asked of him might not be easy, but it was a great honor, and a sign of the old shaman's faith in him, that he would trust such a momentous responsibility to another. Shadow Hawk would go to the cave of the spirit path when the time was right, and look into the future, but it was not the future that haunted him, it was the woman in his vision. Shadow Hawk drew Ohitika to a halt at the crest of a tree-studded rise. It was here he had first seen the spirit woman. He had been 14 at the time, and earnestly seeking a medicine dream to guide him on the road to becoming a warrior. Even now, 11 summers later, he could remember that day. It had been Wazustekasawai, the moon when strawberries are ripe. The sky had been blue and clear, the air warm. Clad in nothing but a clout and moccasins, he had stood on the blanket his mother had made for him, his arms raised, his head thrown back as he gazed up at the sun. 3 nights and 4 days he had waited for a vision. He had offered tobacco to the 4 directions, to Mother Earth, to the Great Spirit above, but he had seen nothing, heard nothing. Weak with hunger, his mouth and throat dry from lack of water, he had uttered a final prayer to Wakantanka, begging for a sign, a vision, to guide him through life. He had been about to give up when the shadow of a huge black hawk had fallen over him. Mesmerized, he had stared at the shadow on the ground, and gradually, his image had merged with that of the shadow of the hawk until they were one. He had legs and wings, hair and feathers. And he could see for miles as though he were looking through the far-seeing eyes of the hawk. Time lost all meaning, and he felt as though he was soaring, gliding, chasing the wind. For a long while he was alone in the skies, and then, to his surprise, he was leading other birds, sparrows, and jays, and one lone eagle, leading them away from the blood-stained claws of a vulture. Using the keen eyes of the hawk, he had searched for a haven of safety, away from the sacred land of the Lakota into a land northward. But before he could find refuge, the eagle overtook him, and then, before he had time to wonder what it meant, the shadow of the hawk was gone, and he stood on the mountain, alone. He had stared after the hawk until it was out of sight, and then, too weak to remain upright any longer, he had dropped to his knees and closed his eyes. It was then he had seen the spirit woman's shadowy image for the first time. He had not mentioned the mysterious woman to Heart of the Wolf when he told the medicine man of his vision. Perhaps he had only imagined her after all. Old Heart of the Wolf had interpreted his medicine dream. The first part of the vision meant that he would be as strong and wise as the great black hawk so long as he followed the life path of the Lakota. And what of the second part? Hawk had asked. Heart of the Wolf had not answered right away. When he did speak, his voice was troubled. You will lead our people away from our enemies. I hear doubt in your voice. Heart of the Wolf nodded. It may be that you will not lead the people yourself, but that you will lead the eagle who follows in your shadow. But know this, you have been chosen by the Great Spirit to be a leader of our people. You shall have a new name. From this day forward you shall be known as Shadow Hawk. He had been 20 when he saw the woman's ghost-like image a second time. It had been summer again, during the time of Wawanyankwasapai, the sun dance. Tethered to the sacred pole by 2 lengths of heavy rawhide fastened to skewers embedded in the muscles of his chest, he had danced forward and back, offering his blood and his pain to Wakantanka, beseeching the gods of the Lakota to bless the people through the coming year. Staring at the sun, he had pulled against the rawhide, his teeth tightly clenched to hold back the groan that rose in his throat. One last jerk against his tether, and his skin had given way, freeing him from the sun dance pole. He had stumbled backward, then dropped to the ground, his chest warm with his blood. As he lay there, his eyes closed against the pain, the spirit woman's image had appeared before him. He had not been able to see her face clearly, only the glow of sun-gold skin, and a riot of curly hair as black as the wings of his spirit bird. And even as he watched, the shadow of the black hawk he'd seen in his visions seemed to merge with the woman, and he heard a voice echo in the back of his mind, the voice of the shadow hawk. "She is waiting for you." The words were no more than the merest whisper, yet they rang loud and clear in his mind. "You cannot fulfill your destiny without her." He had seen her for the third time just before going to Heart of the Wolf's lodge that morning, and he could not attribute the vision to fatigue or loss of blood this time. He had gone into the woods to pray, and as he gazed heavenward he had seen her face, her mouth full and red, her eyes as blue as a midsummer sky. Who was she? Why did her image intrude on his prayers and dreams? What power did she have over him, that he could not forget her? What magic did she possess that made him think of her day and night? What did she want of him? One mystery at a time, he thought with a wry grin. He would venture into the cave of the spirit path, and seek the answers to Heart of the Wolf's questions, and then he would seek to unravel the mystery of the spirit woman. His mother, Winona, was waiting for him when he returned to his lodge. She never seemed to age, only to grow more beautiful with the passing years. He smiled at her as he took a seat, and reached for the bowl she offered him. "You have seen the woman again," she said, and it was not a question. "Yes." Could not Heart of the Wolf tell you what it means? Shadowhawk put the bowl aside. "We did not speak of her. He wishes me to go to the cave of the spirit path." Winona stared at her son, one hand over her mouth to cover her astonishment. Shadowhawk smiled at her. "He wishes me to be his legs and eyes." Winona shook her head. "Heya! I must do it." "Heya!" his mother repeated. "No." "What would you have me do?" "No one but a holy man must enter the cave. For another to do so means death," Winona said fervently. "If Heart of the Wolf has lost his power, then it is time our people found a new medicine man. He has not lost his power. His heart and his mind are still strong. Only his legs and his eyes grow weak." Shadowhawk gazed at his mother for a long moment. "I will be the next medicine man." "He has made his decision then?" "Yes." Winona stared at her son for a long moment, and then she smiled, her eyes filled with quiet pride. "It will be good to have a holy man in my lodge." Shadowhawk nodded soberly. To be a Wikasawakan, or holy man, required much learning, and carried a great deal of responsibility. Holy men had to be able to interpret dreams and visions, to settle disputes, to be well versed in knowledge of the Lakota gods. Wakantanka was the supreme god who ruled over all, for gods ruled beneath him. Why, the sun ruled the world. Scan, the sky, was a source of power. Maka, the earth, was the mother of all living things. Inian, the rock, was the protector of households. It was Scan who judged a man's spirit at the time of death. Shadowhawk took a deep breath. He had learned much from old Heart of the Wolf, and he felt a deep sense of pride that the old medicine man considered him worthy to succeed him, but it was the spirit woman who occupied his thoughts most often these days. "When I return from the cave, I will ask Heart of the Wolf to tell me of the spirit woman," he remarked, putting his thoughts into words. "She troubles me, Ina. I would know what she wants of me." Winona shook her head as she squeezed her son's arm affectionately. "Sacred caves and spirit women. Wog. Forget this Wasakan Winyang who haunts your dreams. It is time you took a wife." Shadowhawk took a deep breath and loosed it in a long sigh. His mother was right. It was far past time when he should have taken a wife. But none of the Lakota maidens drew his eye. Many were beautiful. Many had looked at him with warm eyes. All would make fine wives and mothers. But his blood did not heat at their nearness, his heart did not beat fast for any of them. And so he remained alone, a man apart. He had war honors. He had been gifted with a vision, and endured the pain, and the reward of the sun dance. But he had not found a woman to share his lodge. Perhaps the fault lay in him. Perhaps he was meant to live alone, or to be one of those men who was neither man nor woman. Shadowhawk shook his head in disgust. He was a warrior. He had proven himself in battle many times. He had counted coup more than any other man in the village. He would not sit with the women. He would not live his life alone. A wry grin turned up the corner of his mouth. Perhaps his mother was right. Perhaps it was time to take a wife. But first he must travel the spirit path.